Okay. So what is this hype around AI? A lot of people have been talking about AI since 2023, especially. And today, people are talking more about AI, different use cases which AI can solve for you. And I read, like Rohit mentioned, I read a lot about AI daily, at least 30 to 1 hour. 1 hour I devote to AI. What is happening around AI across the world. So even if I miss just one day of reading, uh, I just realized that a lot new things have come up. So the way AI is changing and how new startups are developing around AI, it's just mind blowing. And it's too much overwhelming actually. When you start reading about AI, you will realize this. So what's this hype around AI? AI can generate fresh ideas for you. Yes. It can create content for you, which we are already doing. It can automate tasks for you. It can create images. It can create videos also. So lately, Sora was launched by OpenAI, which is being touted as an agency killer by many. Uh, Brainstorm ideas. AI can brainstorm ideas for you. AI can build websites and apps. Yes, AI can analyze big data for you. But but that is just the tip of iceberg. There are a lot of things that AI can still do, and in future, I'm sure a lot of new things are going to come up. A lot of new use cases are going to come up, which we will see in future. This is what I envisage as of now. So coming to the first point, uh, ChatGPT is actually useless. This is what I used to feel, and I've heard a lot of people talking about it that ChatGPT is just useless. मेरा output ही नहीं आता है proper. So when I joined HDFC Bank, when I started using ChatGPT 9 or 10 months ago, I also used to feel the same thing that ChatGPT is actually useless. But there is a but. ChatGPT is useless only if not prompted properly. If your prompts are not proper, you will not get proper outputs. So, in simple language, ChatGPT works on the logic of garbage in and garbage out. If you give a garbage input, you will get a garbage output. As simple as that. So, through this workshop, through this uh, discussion, I'm going to give you some of the tips, some of the hacks which I have been able to learn in these last 10 months, which will help you improve your outputs, which will help you improve your inputs as well. So, talking about fundamentals, what exactly is ChatGPT? So, ChatGPT stands for chat is basically conversational. This is a conversational AI. GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. Now, why pre-trained? Because uh, ChatGPT is trained on a lot of data sets, data sets which are available online till April 2023. And OpenAI is continuously upgrading it, introducing new updates. And in future, I'm sure that this cutoff date will increase further. So why this thing matters? Why ChatGPT being trained till April 2023 matters a lot? I'll explain it to you in later prompts, in later slides. Now, there are a few terms which you might come across whenever you read about AI. So I'll cover these in a very simple language. So NLP is one of the terms that is being used a lot, which stands for natural language processing. It basically means that AI will interact with you like a human interacting with you in human language. That's why it's conversational in nature. So if you have used ChatGPT, whenever you interact with it, it will answer your queries in a conversational language like a human is answering to you. I call my ChatGPT as an intern. It is my intern basically, to be honest. Prompt engineering. So this is a term that was very popular, widely popular across 2023. It's still popular. So what exactly is prompt engineering? I think it is the skill of the future. A lot of organizations are going to look for people who actually have this skill set, or who someone who has a very high level skill set around prompt engineering. So what exactly is prompt engineering? It is basically uh, a question or an input that you give to ChatGPT or any LLM, and which can guide it to give you the most effective response. So whatever prompt that you type, if it is a one-liner prompt which lacks context, against if you type a prompt which has all the details in it, which has all the rules, everything, obviously the second prompt will give you better output. So this is what prompt engineering skill set is all about. Getting the best outputs based on your inputs from ChatGPT. Token. So token is the currency of ChatGPT, and it is the building block basically. ChatGPT doesn't understand characters or words. It understands tokens. Although if you call out in your prompt that I want your output to be in these many characters, it will understand that. But at the back end, the language that it understands is token. So in general, from what I've read, one token is equal to 0.75 or zero point 0.7 words. So you can just estimate that how many tokens equal to how many words. Multimodal capabilities. So ChatGPT currently is multimodal. What multimodal means is that you can give your input as a text, as a sound, as image, and in future you will be able to give your inputs as videos with Sora coming in.
Vipul, you
Hallucination.
might need to add that these multimodal capabilities are only in ChatGPT 4.0 and not 3.5, which
Yeah.
most of the
Yeah, I was
participants
about to
might be
come to
using.
that. Yes. I was about to come to that in the next slide. So I'll cover that as well, Rohit. Talking about the next term, hallucination. So hallucination was word of the year uh, at dictionary.com in 2023 because of the popularity of AI. Now, what hallucination means is that many times when you give an input to ChatGPT, it gives you an output which is factually incorrect, but it claims that output to be correct. Now, this is what hallucination means. So, what it is similar to what we humans do normally. Whenever we ask a human some question and that person does not know the answer, so that person will start generating an output which is a fictional output, not factually correct, and just throw something or give you an answer, indicating that that person knows that question, the answer to that question. So this is what ChatGPT does many times. So that said, you have to be very careful whenever you use any output from generated by ChatGPT. You have to check whether the output is factually correct or not, because in some cases, LLMs hallucinate. Now, talking about ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4. So there are a lot of differences between the two models that OpenAI has given us. Now, ChatGPT 3.5 is trained on 175 billion parameters. This is what I have come across through my secondary research. ChatGPT 4 is trained on 1.75 trillion parameters. So you can see the difference on the training data set, which both have been trained on. There is a huge difference. Talking about context window. So context window is one of the key things that a lot of people look into whenever they want to decide whether to use ChatGPT or Gemini or any other LLM. Now, what context window means is, so for example, if you want to input a very long, detailed prompt, which has all the context in it. Now, that context, that window that you are using for inputting that prompt, giving that prompt to ChatGPT, that carries the context. That is your context window. That is ChatGPT's context window. Now, what this means, 128,000 or 16,385 tokens means is ChatGPT will able to carry the context of your conversation in that particular window till the latest 16,385 tokens. So for example, if you have given a very long input which has more than 16,385, let's say 17,000 tokens, ChatGPT anyway will be able to understand the context from your input till 16,385 tokens only. Beyond that, it will not carry that context. Why this matters? Because basis that context, ChatGPT will answer your queries. So we have to be very careful whenever you're giving any document to ChatGPT as an input or any longer prompt that you're giving it. You have to be very wary about this, that it will be able to understand only till 16,385 tokens or 128,000 tokens. Now, this is going to increase in future for sure, because lately Gemini has also come up with 1 million tokens, which is absolutely huge. Just to give you a context, 1 million tokens is equal to 1 hour of video input. So it's huge actually. Now, GPT 3.5 is trained on data till September 2021. GPT-4 is trained till April 2023. Now, why this matters again is because if you want to do some strategy project where you want in outputs from ChatGPT which are latest, which have the latest, which follow the latest trends. So the chances of 3.5 giving you accurate outputs or better output will be lesser compared to what 4.0 will give you, because the latest trend will not be captured by 3.5 as compared to 4. Maximum output tokens. So these are same for 3.5 and 4. Unimodal, like Rohit mentioned earlier, ChatGPT 3.5 is unimodal in nature. You can only input text, but in 4 you can input text, you can input images, you can input recordings as well. 3.5 is free, 4 is paid. Talking about hallucination rates, so Vectara last year released a hallucination index. We talked about hallucination in the previous slide. So currently, according to their index, Vectara's index, 3.5 and 4, ChatGPT 4 Turbo have the lowest hallucination rates in the market, which is 3% and 3.5% respectively. So while the chances of ChatGPT throwing you a factually incorrect output in ChatGPT 4 or 3.5 is lesser, but still there has to be some human intervention. A human has to check all the outputs. As simple as that. In 3.5, there are no limit on the number of prompts, but in 4, you can only enter 40 prompts for every 3 hours. Now this is a big challenge, and I'm sure OpenAI might increase this limit, because when you start using it extensively, you will realize that this is a big limit which ChatGPT 4 has currently. Now, talking about good prompt versus bad prompt. So what exactly is a good prompt? What exactly is a bad prompt? Let me show you some examples. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So can you see my screen again? Excellent. So let's start with a basic prompt. Uh, let's say if I want ChatGPT to give me an SMS for an HDFC Bank credit card where I want to promote a 1500 voucher. So what I'll do is I'll write, I want you to help me with an SMS for HDFC Bank credit card acquisition campaign. The offer which I want to promote is as follows. Any user who gets an HDFC Bank credit card will also get a rupees 1500 voucher. Okay, let's see. So I asked it for an SMS. This is what it has given me on the through this basic prompt input. Now, if you I'm sure that many of you have looked at SMS at some point of time on your mobile phones. Do you feel that this qualifies as a good SMS? Absolutely no. There are a lot of errors in it. For example, emoji. SMS do not carry emojis. There is no URL to click in this SMS. And it's too verbose, given the limits that we have, the character limits that we have on an SMS. So let me show you what exactly is a good prompt. So there are a lot of frameworks that we use in prompting, and this is my favorite framework. This is what we as a team, as a Marcom team at HDFC Bank use. It's called as RCC framework. It's a very simple framework to understand, and this framework will help you create any prompt in any field wherever you're working. If you understand this framework, you will be able to crack as good quality prompts as possible. So what RCC stands for is R stands for role play. So basically, in the first stage, you are giving ChatGPT a role. For example, in this case, I'm giving ChatGPT a role of seasoned copywriter or an expert copywriter from Ogilvy with more than 20 years of experience in writing high conversion SMS. This is just one of the examples. Likewise, if you wanted to write codes, you can give it a role of a coder, or whatever terminology that or job role that is used by coders normally. Talking about the next part of this framework, which is C, context. So C stands for context. So what you're going to do here is you're going to give ChatGPT context of your requirement. Now that context could be product description, it could be objective, it could be target audience, or whatever other details that you feel would help in giving ChatGPT a better output, better input. Coming to the next part of this framework, which is constraint. So constraints are basically rules that you set in your prompts. Now, why these rules matter? Because these rules will set a boundary for ChatGPT to give an output by aligning to those rules. For example, in the previous uh, in the previous prompt that I showed you, the output was too verbose. There were no links provided in the SMS. Emojis were being used. So if you set your rules clearly that I don't want any emojis in the SMS, for example, I want there to be a URL in the SMS. So it will follow those rules and the output will be much more refined. Last part of this RCC framework is emotional stimuli. Now this emotional stimuli could also be an example. I'll show you how to use example as a reference. So what does emotional stimuli means is, so I just like I talked about ChatGPT being my intern, so I treat it as a human. So just like humans, when you motivate them to do something emotionally by giving them, by motivating them by saying something positive or anything, uh, which creates that stimulation in the mind of the use or in the minds of the humans to do that task. Likewise, you can do the same thing to ChatGPT. For example, in this case, if I want to motivate ChatGPT to give me a better output, I can say that this requirement is very important to my career, for example. Likewise, you can also ask it to uh, approach any problem step by step. So I'll cover that as well in my prompting framework so that you will be able to understand it more. Now, this is one of the examples of how to write a good prompt. If you see in this framework, I'm giving it as a role of Ramesh. Ramesh is an expert copywriter from Ogilvy. Here I'm defining the context of the problem. Now here I'm giving the rules, the constraints, which I feel are applicable to my requirement. And at last, in red, you can see this is a emotional stimuli. Now, why are we keep putting? Why do you might wonder that why is it their requirement of an emotional stimuli? Because so there was a research that was done by a team last year where they tried out different emotional stimuli. Like, this is very important to my career. There were 7, 8 stimuli that they tested, and surprisingly, the results that they found in an input which did not carry any emotional stimuli versus an input which carried some emotional stimuli, just a one-liner stimuli, there was a difference of 10%, 10 to 15% in the output. So this one-liner can improve your outputs by 10 to 15%. This is what, not me speaking, this is what researchers told. This is their research. So that's why we started doing it, and it is giving us actually good outputs. So let us try this
Vipul, I
output.
just would like to add, because most of the audiences are from social and environment sector. So
Yeah.
this role, while Vipul is sharing a role of a agency planner, a copywriter, in your context, you can say, imagine you are a environment expert, a climate change expert, and you have to define what all UN frameworks you have an understanding of, what all strategies you have an understanding of. So sharply define, bake in all that into the role, so that then ChatGPT will say, okay, I am this person, I have intelligence of these topics, and this is how I think. And then
Correct.
you give the context and all.
So just
Any
like
questions
carrying,
till now on the role? Vipul, maybe we can spend 30 seconds.
yeah,
Any questions on
yeah,
what role? Because role becomes very, very critical when you are expecting any output from ChatGPT.
correct.
Any questions, audience?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Varsha
Varsha.
has a question.
Yes, actually, I typed my question in the chat box too. Um, can it can it
Sorry,
play
so,
the role
sorry,
of a
it didn't. It
researcher?
Yes, yes,
Can
it
it
can
do?
very
Yes,
well play
yes.
the role of a researcher. Then you have to say ki, a researcher, which topic or which subject you are working on. So suppose if I'm saying ki you are doing a PhD on philosophy, then you say ki you are a researcher who is doing a philosophy PhD on Indian philosophy. There are 9 Indian philosophies. These are the Chakravarti to Buddhism, Jainism, blah 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 blah. This is what your understanding is, this is what it is, and this is the problem statement that you're trying to solve. So you imagine how you're defining the role as a researcher. What all research techniques do you use? How do you actually go searching about the information? Which are typical websites you refer to for your research, or periodicals you refer to for research? You have to define those things. So many a times we
Right.
humans subconsciously assume things. GPT cannot. So you have to detail those things out. So how you
See,
as a researcher will think and act, you just have to give instructions to GPT to think and act like that. And then it will work as a sous chef for you.
so carrying forward Rohit's point, Varsha, role can be anything.
Yes.
As you are subject matter expert, for example, in research, whatever role that you feel will fit really well for your requirement, you can give it, you can assign it to ChatGPT, but you have to also give proper context, proper rules, and at the end, emotional stimuli or example. The framework remains same, but the output will be different for you, and it will be different from my use case. So this framework can be applied to any uh, job role or any industry, to be precise.
So can
The
I?
basics will be same, the basic framework will be same, the structure will be same. It is just you have to use your thinking on how to frame, how to create that output using that framework, create that input or prompt using that framework.
Could I take this a little forward if we have the time?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, why not? Because it will help others also understand in their respective context.
Right. So, a lot of research articles and papers are behind paywalls. And
Hmm.
if I say that, these are the sources that you can refer to for so and so topic that I'm interested in, would it be able to review those
It
and
depends.
generate summaries?
It depends. So if
Okay.
if
Yeah.
ChatGPT is allowed to access that website link or whatever link that is, it will be able to summarize it or read it. But if it is not allowed to access it, it won't be able to do that. So one way of doing it is,
Okay.
if you have access to that article, maybe you can put it in a Word file or a PDF and put it as an input. Because it's
All right.
multimodal in nature, it will be able to read it.
Got it. Okay.
So
Okay.
one
Thank
more
you.
thing.
Thank
So
you.
yeah.
Vipul,
Yeah.
Vipul, can I ask a question? Going
Yeah,
back to the
sure,
role
please.
again.
Hmm.
See, is there a framework or is there a structure to define a role and give to
Hmm.
ChatGPT?
Yeah. So the basic structure, let me show you. The basic structure that we use here is we give it a name. For example, I'm giving it an Indian name just to make sure that uh, there is no iota of chance that it start throwing me output which are non-Indian. Uh, Again, I'm giving it a role with an experience. So whatever role that you can think of as per your requirement, you have to add some experience in it. Now, with experience, you also need to define where that experience is. It could be in, for example, in my case, it is in private banking sector of India. In your case, it could be some other industry. And then in other details, you have to uh, give some other parameters. For example, in this case, what I've done is I have made it an expert copywriter who has conceptualized more than 500 successful SMS and WhatsApp campaigns, for example, for banking products. In your case, it could be something different. You can also mention that you have led many award-winning campaigns or whatever your field is. So that is something that you have to think about, think as per your requirement, and then put it in your framework, RCC framework. So role
So
can be
Vipul,
anything. Yeah.
Vipul, for role, can people refer to that particular role's job description? Probably that can be a good input point to pick up things and add to this
Yeah.
role definition prompt.
Yeah.
What are the
Bilkul.
skill
Yes.
sets that you are looking at? What kind of experience? So typically, a vacancy says, "Ki I am looking at a person with 8 years of experience. These are the kind of work that they do." Probably that can be a good starting point for you all to
Yeah.
take input for defining the role.
So one of the things which will help you a lot, since why I'm sharing this very basic prompting framework, so that it is easier for you guys to understand. Now you can take it forward to another level by adding more constraints to it, more parameters to it. You can pinpoint your role very precisely in your prompting input. But that will again depend on how you look at that requirement and how you look at that particular role. You can assign a lot of details to that role. Like Rohit mentioned, you can also add some other parameters to that role which you specifically are looking for in that person who will answer your query. For example,
Yeah,
in this
thanks.
case, what
Thanks.
I
Yeah, that's
want
got
is
it.
that I want Ramesh to write in simple, conversational, persuasive, positive, and contemporary writing style. I've clearly defined it here. So
Right. Right.
this is my expectation, and that's how ChatGPT will start responding to my query. Now, two or three more things just to keep in mind. This will help you improve your output further. So last year I came across a prompt which was called as ChatGPT system prompt. So what that prompt does is it throws the backend prompt which OpenAI has used in ChatGPT. It's a very long prompt. Some of the learnings that I could see in that prompt, I have applied here as well. If you look closely, some of the words have been capitalized, like simple, conversational. Here also I have capitalized, remember to follow, because I want ChatGPT to make sure that it does not misses out these points specifically. Just like when you write an email in anger, you put some words in all caps. Same thing works for ChatGPT as well. If you see here, I've added a hash sign here. This is just to break down my longer prompt into smaller prompts, smaller sections. So this section is denoted by a hash and the name, section name, to clearly make it understand that this is what this means. This line means context. This means target audience, so on and so forth. Any other question? Any other question for me before I continue?
I would request all to ask questions, because I'm sure you guys, many of you would be seeing things for the first time, or or if you were using ChatGPT, you may have certain questions how to fix a problem that you might be facing, and this is an ideal platform to ask and clear your doubts.
Yeah.
Hello, Vipul.
Yeah.
I'm Vishnu, and
Hi.
I use ChatGPT 3.5 for long, more than 6 months, and you might be seeing my Sunday sharing. The 50% content of my Sunday sharing I take from three things from ChatGPT, then Gemini now, the earlier Bard. But I am using simple, not this emotional content you are discussing. And is there any? And I'm doing getting the content, also summarizing the most of the things. So, is there any things we can put input to limit the words? Like I need this output or summary in 100 words or 150 words, or how to get this text like better outputs.
Yeah. So the first thing that you need to start doing is you have to define a constraint. So for example, if you want it to output in 100 words, not beyond 100 words, you have to clearly define it as a constraint, as a rule. Many times what happens is, especially in 3.5, because that is not 3.5 is not as evolved as 4.0. So many times it throws an output which goes beyond 100 words, for example. So you have to iterate it again. You have to ask it to correct it. You have to keep giving feedback to your to ChatGPT. So in most of your prompting input, you will not get a perfect output at one go. It will be there like 80% there, or 85% there, or 90% there. In some cases, 100%. But that will be a good start if you create your framework, proper framework of your prompt, and then give it as an input. And then you can take it forward by giving some feedback on specific things. And one thing to note in mind, uh, whenever you give feedback, you have to pinpoint that feedback specifically. For example, if there is a huge paragraph and I have feedback only on one line, I'll I'll clearly specify that this is the line I want you to rework on. Nothing else, and don't change anything else. So ChatGPT will do that for you. Another suggestion.
Thank you.
Another
Yeah, that is
suggestion.
useful.
Sorry.
Now, please continue. It is
Yeah.
useful. I
Yeah.
was not aware about these things.
Yeah. So one more thing I would suggest, I will highly recommend that you start using 4.0, because the comparison of the quality of output in 3.5 and 4.0, there is a drastic difference. There is a huge difference. We also started with 3.5 and now we are using 4.0. There is a huge difference in the output. So highly recommended you start using 4.0.
Yeah, thank you. How much monthly they are charging 4.0?
I think
In
it is.
Indian rupees, how much?
I think it's 1500. Rohit, please correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 1500?
Yeah, it's annually it is around 25 or 26,000 rupees. So 2,000 rupees a month or so. It works out to, but you take an annual plan, it works out cheaper.
Okay.
Achha, one more question.
Ideally, if you are working in an organization, you can always pitch your organization to get one for your team. And it
not
also
possible
paves
in government organization. Not possible in the government organization like SRLM.
But then let me give you a caveat. Since you're working in government, you need to understand that this is not an enterprise version of ChatGPT. Anything and everything that you type in here is stored on foreign soil. So when we use it, we are very, very clear there is no PII data involved.
Correct.
So you need to have to use that caveat, unless and until you have an enterprise version where it is ring fenced and only your department data in your digitally secured premises, it will be stored, then it is fine. Otherwise, only use for something which is not confidential in nature.
I'm not sharing or using any for official purpose till now. I'm doing my personal. This is all can we share in public? That's
Yeah.
secrecy or
Just that's the
anything
caveat I wanted to
related
share with you all.
government.
Even we follow that parameter very, very strictly till the time we move on to a phase where we have the enterprise version. Enterprise version, what happens is that entire cloud is only of the organization. Nothing goes to the main servers of GPT. They
think
replicate, they
one more
create
question.
a private GPT for you.
So Rohit, I'll take one more question before I continue. I think Ravi has one question. Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah,
He had raised.
It's more a comment than a question here. Vishnu is someone who shares his knowledge once a week. So it's like a Sunday sharing and so on. So whatever work he's talking about is essentially talking about any particular topic that he picks for the week, and he shares that. And apparently uses ChatGPT 3.5. As far as ChatGPT 4 is concerned, I will reach out to some people in our group, and we will try and find out if we could get an enterprise version, and then we can essentially share the cost. And it's going to be a some kind of a metered version and so on. We'll figure that out, but it's something which if it's worth pursuing, we will pursue that. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Vipul, there's one thing I wanted to ask you, which is you said about motivating ChatGPT to give you the right answers and so on, right? Another technique, I don't know if you have used it, and I haven't, is at the end of the day, especially with in the Indian scenario, it's like a boss has to generally be an ass. Okay, so can we threaten GPT by saying, you better get me an answer, rather than, hey, can you please give me an answer?
So
I'm just asking that as a question.
Yeah, it can be done. I have not tested it, but I came across, I think few months ago, I came across an approach which someone tested where that person blackmailed ChatGPT to give an output, a better output. So what that person did was he entered one-liner prompt at the end of his entire prompt, that if you do not answer in this manner, I'll call police or I'll complain Sam Altman of OpenAI that you are not doing a good job. So surprisingly, he got better output. And another way to do it is to bribe ChatGPT. You can also bribe ChatGPT, by the way. Don't do it.
That works. That works.
Yeah. That person tried it actually. So what you can do is you can tell ChatGPT that I'll tip you $100 if you give me a better output. That person quoted that he got 10% better output. So these are some of the hacks that which also work with humans. It will work with ChatGPT as well, because it is trained on human data, right? Human generated data. We don't use it. We have better techniques that I will share with you guys. But this is another way of doing it. And that's why I had capitalized some of the words, some of the keywords in my prompt to make sure that ChatGPT doesn't misses those keywords specifically.
People just being a timekeeper, we are 45 minutes into the presentation. Yeah.
Okay, so let's try this prompt. I'm giving it a role first. Now it has given me high five. And this is my next input. Now the problem statement is same. Let's see what is the output that I will get.
People just hold the prompt for a while so that people can see what how you have given it.
Okay. Done. So what I did was, first I'm giving it a context, it a role. And then with role, I have defined that what writing style Ramesh is going to follow. And at last, I'm writing that all this information will reflect in the way that will define how Ramesh will answer my queries. And then I'm asking it to acknowledge if he has understood, if Ramesh has actually understood everything with a high five. So it gave me high five. This means that it has acknowledged it, all these details. Now, next part is the actual task that I'm giving Ramesh. It has context, it has target audience, it has the offer that I'm going to pitch, and rules. Now, this is the output that I have received. Just look at the quality of this output compared to the previous output. Now, this is actually an SMS that it has generated. So it's below 160 characters. In some cases, it might say that it is not 160 within, it is within 160 characters, but it is actually not within 160 characters, which means that it is actually hallucinating. But the quality is for sure much better than what we received earlier. It is to the point. There are no emojis in it. It carries a link and it's within 160 characters, which was my expectations. All this was done because I have clearly defined the rules. Okay. Now I can take forward this conversation and improve it further. So this is how the Brave framework can be used. How I have used it in Marcom. Likewise, you can use it in your fields as well. One second. Okay. So coming to other prompting frameworks, which you might have come across online, I could quickly take you through these frameworks. So there is a framework called RTF framework, which stands for Role Task Format. It is very similar to RCC framework, and I call it as a jack of all trades. But for me, RCC framework works better. So you can also try this framework. Again, here you will define a role, give it a task, and format how basically the constraints. Then there is also another framework called as chain of thought prompting framework. It basically is very useful in brainstorming whenever you want to do some brainstorming with ChatGPT or you want to solve any complex task or problem solving. So in this case, you just have to insert your prompt instructions and then ask it to think step by step. There is another framework called as Reason framework. It is also very similar to the previous frameworks. Here you have to ask it like uh, here you have to define the steps, how it has to think. For example, if I wanted to write an SMS, I'll define, let's say 2-3 steps that these are the steps that you're going to follow while approaching this task. So it will start doing that. This approach is very useful whenever you want to write some long format articles like blogs. There is another framework called as roads. In this framework, you will ask it, you will give some examples to it. I'll come to this examples thing later as well. So this is also a very useful framework that you can try out. So what happens when you give it examples? It will start mimicking those example styles. I'll cover this as well. So next, I'm going to cover some of the tips that can help you further improve your outputs, help in further improving your outputs. The first tip is chain prompting. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about chain prompting or how many of you are aware about it. So what chain prompting means is basically, let's say if you got an output from your first prompt and you have some feedback. So through chain prompting, you will give that feedback, specific feedback to ChatGPT to correct it. And ChatGPT will start improving your output basis that feedback. So let's try it out. Let's try a basic example. For example, if I want to change something in SMS3, for example. So let's try some feedback. In SMS3, I want to avoid words like apply, keep the CTA text lower in commitment.
CTA is call to action.
CTA is call to action. So you might have come across text like in websites like apply now or check your offer. That is all CTA, call to action. So now if you see apply word, which was earlier there, it is not using it now. It is framing it as secure an HDFC Bank credit card and enjoy a 1500 voucher. So all these things you can give ChatGPT as a feedback and it will start sharing better output. And this is how you make your output better. Let's come to the next technique. Emotional stimuli. This is something that I have already covered. So if you add some emotional stimuli like take this task, work on this task step by step, you can do this. You have all the capabilities to do it. This is very important to my career. My boss is going to fire me if you don't do this properly. You can give all these emotional stimuli and it will give you better output for sure. And these are all tried and tested. I'm not just making these things around. Okay, the next step, it's recursion. So
Vipul,
let's
there's a question. There was a recent study that suggests by adding please in the prompt, there's a higher chance that ChatGPT will hallucinate. What's your view on this?
If you add please in the prompt.
Yes.
I have not come across this actually, Rohit. But again, I don't think I personally, this is just my personal opinion. I don't think hallucination is that big of a problem right now in ChatGPT because anyways you are going to fact check it. This is a specific instruction that you have to follow whenever you are working with ChatGPT. It is not like एक बारी output आया उसको चिपका दिया. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to keep giving it feedback through chain prompting. You have to whenever you cull out an output from ChatGPT, you have to fact check it. Always fact check it because there might be a chance that some of it might hallucinate. So if you fact check it properly, I don't think hallucination will be a problem at all. Even if you write please or not. Okay, so talking about recursion, so what I'm going to do is, let's try this. So through recursion, what I'm going to do is, let me show you this. Now, I want a better output for all three SMS, in all three SMS. So what I'll do is, I'll define 2 steps and I'll ask ChatGPT to repeat those steps 5 times. Basically, I'm asking it to iterate further by improving output at each step, at each iteration. So what I've done is I'm using the logic of recursion here. This is normally used in coding. So what I'll do is I'll ask ChatGPT to identify 1 to 3 points from the initial output that it generated, which are missing, which it feels are missing. And then I'll ask it to improve those outputs, keeping everything identical, like length identical, and include those missing points. And then do it 5 times. So let's see what it generates for me.
It's something like imagine when you write your first love letter, पांच दफे फाड़ के लिखते हो ना, and how you do some. So humans have only trained it. So that same thing we call recursion here.
Yeah.
Am I right, Vipul?
Yes, yes. That's a very good example. So while this is a very basic example, but if you try this recursion in longer format output, like if blogs, for example, or research articles, this works really, really well because it will identify those 2, 3 points. Like here, it identifies in iteration 5, it identified these 3 points and corrected it in iteration 4. So in every iteration, it will keep identifying those points. Now, one layer that you can add here is you can also add specific points that you want it to check in your outputs, 4 or 5 points. So ChatGPT will specifically look for those details, missing details, those details, whether they are missing or not. And then it will iterate. So this is a better way to use recursion. This example that you can see on screen, it's a basic version of it. Now this you have to add at the end of your prompt, or you can chain prompt it after ChatGPT generates the first output. Both ways it works. Coming to the next technique, this is called as lever technique. Now this is one of my favorite trick that I use whenever I do prompting. Now in this through this lever technique, I'm basically tricking ChatGPT to rate an output and then improve that output basis that rating. So I'll show you how it is done. Okay, so let's say if I want to improve these outputs, the first set of outputs, what I'll do is I'll ask it to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, I've defined a scale here very clearly. 1 means least persuasive communication, 10 is highly persuasive communication. So I'm now asking ChatGPT to rate its output, its own output. Let's see what it does. See, now ChatGPT is rating it out its output as 9, 8, and 7, those 3 options. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to improve these 2 outputs, which were rated as 8 and 7, to at least 9 out of 10. Let's choose any one of these. So what it does, what it did for me, these were the 2 options that it rated as 8 and 7. Now this is what it is suggesting, that these are at least 9 out of 10 as per ChatGPT, as per Ramesh, to be honest. Okay, so this is another way which works really well. Your scale can be anything.
Vipul, just Vipul, 1 second. Can you go back to the screen where you given the commands, the 2 lines, please?
Slide.
The previous slide. Yeah. Next one. Next one. Next one.
Lever. Are you referring?
Yeah. Lever one. The commands you gave it into persuasive command lines. Just want to see it.
You want to see that? Okay. Okay.
People, be a bit slow so that people can read through your prompts, because for many of them it will be first time they'll be reading an approach like this. So just help.
Okay.
Be
So
a bit
this
slow
is the
on that.
prompt that I gave. What I did was I defined a scale, 1 to 10 scale, and I have clearly defined that what 1 means and what 10 means in the scale. So in my case, since I'm talking about communication, I'm telling ChatGPT that 1 means least persuasive communication. Why persuasive? Because I'm creating this output for an acquisition campaign. So the communication has to be persuasive, so that a customer clicks on the link and goes to the journey and applies for a credit card. So in your case, if you want to define a scale, it can be anything. For example, if you want to write a blog, you can define a scale and on 1 to 10, and 1 can be a very crisp blog and 10 can be a very detailed blog, for example. This is one of the examples. Likewise, this scale can be defined to anything. All I'm doing is I'm asking ChatGPT to rate its output and improve it further. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, right. And you also put another command to improve from 7 to 9. Can you show that?
Yeah. So it's just a 1-liner prompt. So what I'm doing here is I'm asking it to improve the outputs where it rated the output as 8 and 7, less than 9 basically. Now this, you can define it as 10 as well. If you want a 10 out of 10 output, it will do that.
Good. Thanks.
Cool. Any other question before I proceed? I know this can be a bit overwhelming, so please interrupt me and feel free to ask your questions. Yeah, Varsha.
Yes, again, I put it in the chat box. 2 questions really. One, on the current discussion that is going on, wouldn't there be a positive bias in ChatGPT rating its own outputs? And yeah, I'll go ahead with the second question, then you can answer both together.
Mm-hmm.
The second question was on the role. For example, would it help to tell ChatGPT that you are, for example, MS Swaminathan, a scientist who is there in the public domain, and you want the outputs based on, let's say, what MS Swaminathan has written. So,
Yes.
or, in the case of some communication campaign, you want the chat GPT to produce an output where it talks like Shah Rukh Khan, for example. So is it okay to specify that in the role? And is it legal?
Yeah, it can do that. Given that ChatGPT is trained, if ChatGPT is trained on all the writing styles or the nuances that Mr. Swaminathan follows or Shah Rukh Khan follows, it will do that for you. I'll show one example which will answer your query actually. I have one example. Another thing on the positive bias. So I have not come across personally any output where I feel that the output is not good, then ChatGPT is being biased. But again, that is very subjective. If you feel that this is the case, then you give it feedback that improve it further. This is just one of the hacks that you can use to improve your output. There is no set rule. It is not set in stone that this is going to work always for you. These things will help you to further improve your output. And trust me on this, Rohit and I keep using recursion, lever techniques a lot, and these are really, really useful. Yeah, Ravi, you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Vipul.
You're welcome. Ravi, you have one question.
Yeah. So instead of asking ChatGPT to rate itself, does it maintain, let's say that it has sent 3 SMS messages, 3 sets of SMS, and the number of clicks that it had elicited, right? I mean, how many people have opened the first one versus the second one, the third one? Does it keep count of it? Can we program Ramesh to keep track of all these hits and then come back with, okay, Ramesh, based on your last campaign that we did, so the first one had 2,000 hits, the second one had 200 hits, and the third one no one even opened. Okay, so now based on that feedback, can you learn to write it right? How would
That's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant idea.
Vipul, why don't you share a subject line tool example?
Yeah, I'll do that. So that's a brilliant idea. I'll cover one example later. But just to answer your question, Ravi, this technique works really well because now you are specifying that what kind of writing style or tonality is working well when it comes to SMS, for example, for Ramesh. So what Ramesh will do is basis your feedback that where you have defined SMS 1 got 2000 clicks, for example, SMS 2 got 200 clicks. So ChatGPT will capture those nuances, those learnings, and start implementing those learnings in the outputs in the next range of output, next set of outputs. You just have to give that feedback and then ask it, basis your learnings, share your output. So it will do that. And you can also ask it to
upload an Excel sheet. This is the SMS. It has gone to these group of people, and this group of people, out of these many people click. B, A, and it went to 120 click. B, it went to 130 click. C, it went to 105 click. So if you give that data to GPT, it can learn that which group of people are responding to what kind of words, and it can fine tune it.
This technique is called as few shot, one shot prompts, which I will cover again. So what basically you're telling ChatGPT is to learn from those examples or those set of feedback that you give it, and then start mimicking those styles. So it will do that. I'll share one example, basic examples in later slides. Any other question before I proceed?
People, we are halfway through. It's already 1 hour, so just giving you a time check.
Sure. Coming to the next advanced level prompting technique, it's called as temperature. So what temperature means is, it's a very advanced level technique which a lot of prompt engineers use. We also use it. So temperature is a value that is defined in an LLM from 0 to 1. It ranges from 0 to 1. A value closer to 0, a value closer to 0 indicates that the output is very formal, consistent, and a value closer to 1 means it's very uh, informal or very creative. If you want to summarize, if you want to increase the creativity in your output, just increase the temperature. But again, keep this in mind: if you increase the temperature to very close to 1, the output will go haywire. So I'll just show you one example to explain. Now, let's say okay. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm asking ChatGPT to improve these outputs and use the temperature value as 0.7. 0.7 means it will have a balance of creative output as well as consistent output. It will not lead to a very inconsistent output. Okay. So while this is a very smaller text where there are very little things it can do to improve the creativity, but if you try this out in a very longer format, you will see there is a vast difference between the first set of output and the next set of outputs if you increase the temperature. Likewise, for example, we work in banking industry, we keep getting a lot of service level communication. So it is highly recommended that we use a lower temperature value to maintain that consistency, to maintain that formal tone in the outputs. So for example, in our case, it is highly recommended to use a temperature value of 0.3. Likewise, you can define your temperature according to your requirement. Now, this is very useful technique when it comes to marketing. Whenever I want to improve the persuasiveness, for example, I increase the temperature. I want to increase the creativity in my outputs, I increase the temperature. So it works really well. So how you can use it, just to cover, all you have to do is define the temperature at the end of your output. I could have done there as well in my first prompt. I can use it in the next set of prompts as well. Okay. Okay, coming back to this. Okay. Now, this is a very useful technique. There is something called as zero shot prompt, one shot prompt, and few shot prompts. So what does it mean? So like I mentioned earlier, ChatGPT is trained on 1.75, ChatGPT 4 is trained on 1.75 trillion data sets. So in most of your cases, more than 90% cases, you don't need to uh, train it. Train it as in you don't need to give it examples on how to write. For example, one of you mentioned that if I wanted to write like Shah Rukh Khan, I know that it would have been trained in writing in Shah Rukh Khan's style or speaking in Shah Rukh Khan's style. So it will capture those nuances. But in some cases where I am sure about this key that it doesn't know how to write in a specific writing style, I have to define it by using one shot and few shot prompts. So how does it work? Let's start with a basic example. How many of you have actually watched Star Wars movie? I'm sure many of you must have watched it. So there's a very popular character in Star Wars movie, which is Master Yoda. So what I'll do is I'll ask ChatGPT to talk to me like Master Yoda. Let's see how it gives me output. So this is the simple prompt that I'm going to give it. So what I'm doing is I'm asking it to act like Master Yoda from Star Wars franchise. Whatever way in which it will talk to me, it has to follow Master Yoda style. So this is the final question that I'm asking it. So Master Yoda, can I become a Jedi? Let's see how it throws an output to me. Just look at the way it is throwing an output. Very similar to how Master Yoda speaks. I'm sure many of you would be able to relate to it because if you have watched Star Wars franchise. So this is a classic example of very basic example of one-shot prompt. Likewise, if I wanted to write like Elon Musk, if it is trained on Elon Musk writing style, it will start throwing output to me like that. Okay. Now coming to one-shot prompt.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Vipul, quick question.
Yeah.
So this particular prompt that you asked Yoda now, right? So do you think you could integrate Sora to create the sequence itself as a video? Have you started using Sora yet?
No. So we haven't started using Sora. It's a very nascent stage right now, I would say. And I'm sure a lot of people have not used it. Whatever videos that you might have come across online, these were all shared by OpenAI in their blog. So as of now, I cannot comment anything about Sora because I have not used it personally. So that's the only thing that I can say as of now. But I'm sure what you are asking, this might be doable in Sora as well. If not now, maybe in future. This is how we are progressing in the field of AI right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it an example, which is a one-shot prompt. Now this is a one-shot prompt. Why it is a one-shot prompt? Because I'm giving it as an example. I'm giving an example of a high performing SMS, for example. Okay. And then I'm asking it to rewrite it in this style. So what I'm doing is let's improve this further using this example. I want you to use this example to model your revised output. You can add more details to it. This is one basic prompt. And I want to follow this I want you to follow this writing style. So let's see how it mimics it. So if you see the output here in this case compared to the previous outputs, it has captured those minute details from the examples and started mimicking those minute details in my output. Now this is just through one example, which is a one-shot prompt. Likewise, you can throw in multiple examples in your input and it will start following those styles. So that question that you had, one of you had, if I have an SMS, for example, which has given me high click-through rates or high conversions, I can put those SMS examples as an input and ask it to follow those writing styles. It will do that for me. Likewise, if you have an email, which is a very highly successful email, which has worked for you, you can give it as an input. It will do that. So there are a number of use cases which can be done through few short prompts. And it is, I think, one of the most powerful prompting techniques which I have seen till date. You are basically training ChatGPT on a specific set of output. Coming to the next one. Now this is called as creating templates, creating output templates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to see an email example which has worked well for me and mimic it for me for any other campaign. So basically, if there is a structure that a successful email follows, I'm going to ask it to follow the same structure but apply it in some other campaign. So let's see how it works. So let's try out a basic example. Now, in this case, what I'm doing is I'm asking it to write a short story on why goldfish will rule the oceans one day. Okay. Now, if you see these brackets, this bracket means that whatever that will come in this section will be filled in by ChatGPT. I'm just directing it that what will come in this section. For example, in this case, I want it to write a catchy title with a pun. Here, I wanted to write some hooks about the consequences of goldfish ruling the ocean. likewise, so on and so forth. I'm just defining the route, the flow for ChatGPT, and all the things that are within these brackets will be filled in by ChatGPT automatically. Now, this structure is called as templatizing. I'll show you one example later, which will make more sense to you, but let's see what it throws to me as an output. See, now what it is doing is it is following the same flow, which I have defined as template, and creating a story for me, a short story for me. For example, it has a title which has a pun, then it has some hooks, a thoughtful question. Just look at the flow, and then a paragraph with a witty answer to the question. See, and at last, it is concluding the story with a cliffhanger. So this is how you can create different templates. If you, for example, have a story or research article where you want a specific flow and where you want ChatGPT to fill in the details based on its learning, you can do that. Now, this template is very useful in long format. This templatization is very useful in long format outputs. I'll show you one example. Let's take an email. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to analyze a structure of an email, replace each part of that text with those brackets, and then create a template of an email which can be used in any other email. So let me show you that example. Okay. So now I'm going to throw in that email example. So I wanted to create a template of this email, for example. Okay. Now this is the email that I wanted to templatize. Okay. Let's see. If you look closely, it has started creating template of it. Now this is the template that it has created for me by analyzing this email. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to write another email following the same template. So next I want you to write another email following the same template for HDFC Bank credit card. Okay, let's see. So this is a very basic example. What it has done is using my input and this template, it has created a similar style of email. For HDFC Bank credit card. Now, likewise, you can create a lot of templates for you. For example, if there is a WhatsApp message which has worked very well for you, you can templatize it. You can use it in other categories. Obviously, this one-liner prompt can be much better, much well refined, much more refined, so that you get the best output. So that's about this technique. Coming to the next use case. Okay, let's try some other use cases. Let's see. Okay. So let's say if I wanted to write an HTML code for me, I don't know anything about HTML, to be honest. So let's try it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm giving it a role of senior website developer who has developed more than 100 high performing mobile responsive websites. I'm giving it a task and I'm asking it to write an HTML5 code for me while keeping these details. Okay. So let's see what it generates for me. Now this is the HTML code that it has generated for me. So whatever code that you can see in this black box, this is what it has generated basis my input, which is purely English. Now let's see what it does. So if you see on the right side, this is the code that I entered, and this is what it has created for me. A landing page in HTML5. So isn't it amazing? Matlab, if you don't even have a coding background, you can literally create your website pages in a few seconds. Now, this is not a very refined output, but obviously with iterations, with your thought, you can improve it to next level. So this is one of the examples outside marketing where you can create your own website, for example. I'll show you another example, which is a very powerful thing, which Rohit also mentioned. Now, let me show you first. So I talked about ChatGPT 4 being multimodal, where you can not just give an input, which is a text, you can also give a file as an input. For example, in this case, I have a file which has 3475 different subject lines, email subject lines. Now for each subject lines, I have data on how many emails were sent, how many subject lines were clicked, how many emails were opened, basically.
Remember,
Now
these are generic
is,
data that it doesn't contain any personal identifiable information, so we can use it because reading this, no one can misuse it for anything. They will have no context of any individual person's information. So till the time you're not using an enterprise version, take care of these are the areas where you can easily use GPT.
Correct. So this file has only subject lines, no customer sensitive data, nothing at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to analyze this file and throw these outputs for me. Now, this feature is very powerful, specifically if you are in the field of data science or data analysis. This can do your job in a few seconds.
You will not need Excel skills.
Yeah. Okay. Now what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to analyze this sheet based on the analysis. These are 5-6 things I'm going to ask it. I'm asking it. So it will calculate calculate everything and throw everything as an output. This is the analysis. At last, there is an emotional stimuli that I have entered this and capitalize specifically that you don't need to miss anything. Do not miss any information. Okay, let's see what it throws. Now it is analyzing it. So what it does during analysis is there might be some cases where some of the fields are empty. It will bypass those as well. It will also sometimes it clearly tells you that I'm able to see these many rows as empty. So I'm going to bypass these. Everything it does very, very efficiently. In some cases, you might observe that the output are not accurate. So in that case, fact checking again is very, very critical here. See, everything it is throwing in a few seconds. And by the way, you can also ask it to generate graphs. It can do that as well. Okay. Let's try out. So at times what happens is whenever you see that the output is not complete, just type continue there and it will continue the output. Let's see if it generates plot for me or not. See, it has created a plot for me as well. So this is simply amazing. The level of details it looked into in a few seconds in such a big sheet, which as someone who is not well versed with Excel, for example, for that person, this is amazing, given that you are not sending any PI customer sensitive data. So it has calculated all the clicks, opens, average open rate, engagement rate, everything for me, which I've asked for. It has also given me best performing subject lines in each category. Subject lines with maximum engagement rate. Everything I've defined earlier in my prompt, but that what is engagement rate, what is open rate. So basis these formulae, it has calculated everything on its own.
Vipul, very quickly, will it also do advanced Excel function like IRR, NPV, or a chi-square division?
Yeah. So I'll cover one of the use cases if we have time, where we asked ChatGPT to use advanced regression model like random forest models or linear regression to analyze the entire data. And basis that, one of my teammates was able to solve a use case, a big use case for us. So it can do that very efficiently.
Okay, thanks.
You just have to guide it in that way. Or you can even ask it to select it on its own basis the input that you are giving. It will do that.
Can you again show how you uploaded the data?
Yeah. So to upload the data, what you have to do is this. You need to click on this symbol.
Okay, but how big the size file size can be?
Given the context window of 128,000, it will depend. I do not know the exact size that is allowed, but I think less than 10 MB if I'm not wrong, but I'm not clear about this. That what is the exact size, permissible size that is allowed.
But including video files and audio files as well.
Video files, I don't think it can take video files or not. I've not tried video files, but it can take images, it can take PDFs, it can take Excel files as well. So
audio also.
Audio, yes. Recording, audio recording. I've not tried it again, but this is what they are claiming. Another thing to note, in case if it throws an output, an error that it is not able to access that file, just reduce the file size or divide that larger file into multiple chunks, smaller chunks. It will read that.
Thanks.
So you just have to do some trial and error when you're using it for the first time. Okay. Excellent. So this was all about data analysis, writing HTML codes. Now, this is, I think, one of the most interesting things which I'm going to cover. Now, how many of you have actually heard about Bidara prompt by NASA? Anyone? Okay. So last year, what happened was NASA's Bidara prompt was leaked online, which was the headline for a few months, for a few weeks at least, because that prompt was huge. And when I looked at that prompt now for the first time, which was I think October last year, if I'm not wrong, my jaw literally dropped. It was huge. It was huge prompt. I think around 1545 words, if I'm not wrong. I'll show you that prompt. So why I'm covering this here is because although that prompt was directed for scientists, for engineers, for biologists, not for marketeers, but we as marketeers or prompt engineers can learn a lot of things from that prompt. So I'll share my learnings. I'll show you the prompt. What was the exact prompt?
Vipul,
Okay.
we are 1 hour 30 minutes. Time check.
Yeah. So this
Because
is the
slowly
Bidara
people are
prompt.
losing, their cognitive overload is increasing. So we need to be
We'll take a
cognizant of
break.
that.
So after
Yeah.
this, Rohit, we'll take a break of 5 minutes and then we'll cover, if time allows, we'll cover some use cases.
Is it okay to all?
Yeah.
Yes,
Please
yes.
go
I
ahead.
think yeah, we go.
Great.
Oh,
So we'll take a 5 minutes break up once Vipul completes this point, and then
yeah.
we'll reconvene.
Okay. So if you look at this prompt, this huge prompt by NASA, see it, they have clearly defined a role here. They have defined the steps. They have added the context and see this prompt. They have defined the rules as well. What it has to do, what it does not do, it should not do. Everything is defined in this huge prompt. Now, what we can learn from this? Number one, it's a very well structured prompt. If you look at the prompt, it has a role, it has a goal, it has detailed steps and context. See, role, steps, context, and what is the objective? They have already defined it. Now, I know this prompt is very overwhelming, but let me put you a fact. Today, so when we started our journey with ChatGPT, we used to write 50-word prompts, 100-word prompts, 500-word prompts. And today, we are able to write more than 2000-word prompts for our use cases. So all this have happened because we are able to today solve. Why we are able to solve so many use cases today is because we keep learning, we keep relearning new things, we keep learning new things, we keep optimizing our prompts every day, every week. So what I do is I keep looking across all the new things happening around AI, chat GPT, prompting, and using those learnings, I keep refining my prompt. So I have a prompt library, a huge prompt library with me, which I keep updating every day. So this is, I think, should be the go forward for you as well. There is no set rule that this is the only framework that you have to use. This is the only way you can write prompts. I have given you a direction, but the best part of learning prompting is to define your own prompts, to define your own journey in learning prompt engineering. This is how it should be. I can give you those 2000 word prompts. I can give you those 2500 word prompts, but that will not make sense because first of all, you need to be very clear about the basics, which I have covered, and then apply those advanced level techniques on your basic prompts, and then take it forward and keep optimizing your prompts. And then after a point of time, after maybe 5-6 months, you will be able to see that the progress that you have made is amazing. So this is all about NASA's Bidara prompt. And so three more things which they have covered is that they keep asking user feedback. So if you run this prompt on your chat GPT, it will keep asking feedback from you at every step. Why feedback? Because here it is asking you to iterate. Likewise, what we did in chain prompting, we kept giving it feedback. कि इसमें ये change करना है. Now you have to change this. So this is how prompting works. They have incorporated everything in their prompt. Constraints are very clearly defined. Steps are very clearly defined. Now this is what a good prompt should look like. Lastly, one thing that I want to cover, while this is all good, but there are a few myths that I want to bust right now, that AI can develop, for example, many people think that AI can develop free will. While this is a very good sci-fi movie concept, but right now it is far from reality. Maybe in future, who knows, AI can, but right now, no. Another thing that people keep telling me कि ChatGPT can do everything, AI can do everything. See, it is just a model that is trained on data sets. It cannot do everything for you. Obviously, there will be human intervention required, but the best way to go about it is, just like Rohit mentioned initially, is to identify your own pain points in your field and then use AI. You cannot force fit AI into everything. Otherwise, you will see that the output will not be as good as what you want. So first think of a use case that you want to solve. Think where you can improve the efficiency in that particular use case or solve exactly. And then think that how AI can play a role there. The use cases that I'm going to cover next after the break, we use the same approach in solving those use cases. We identified the pain points and then thought how AI can solve those pain points. AI has a human-like intelligence? No, currently it does not have. It is just trained on data. It can answer your queries in Shah Rukh Khan's tonality, yes, but that is all basis the learning, the training that it is trained on. Data sets it is trained on. Lastly, since AI hallucinates, you have to always fact check your outputs. Always. I think that's it. Let's take a break for 5-10 minutes. In case if you have any questions, please let me know. Rohit, you are on mute.
Sorry, we are at 12:39. We reconvene at 12:50. So 11-minute break. And in between, if anyone has any questions, probably Vipul and I, we are happy to take those questions. Other people can just take a break and relax and get back at 12:50. We continue. The second part would be very, very interesting, where Vipul is going to share how in real life we are applying what theory he has just covered, so that it gives you guys an idea. While we looked at our pain points, I'm sure each one of are working in different domains and have different pain point areas. It will just lead to a curiosity or imagination what you can do in your work area. Over to you.
Yeah. So let's take a break. In case if you have any questions, just type in on chat and let's come back.
Hello, Ganendra. Can you mute your mic? Lot of noise coming. Ganendra, please mute your mic. Ganendra, please mute your mic.
वो होनी चाहिए। देखो वो इसलिए करवाती है कि अगर तुम कंप्लीट करने की कोशिश कर रही हो 10% चांसेस हो जाते हैं इसमें, तो मैं चाहती हूँ कि वो 10% ही मिलना है। और मैं भी चाहती हूँ अगर ऐसा कुछ मिलते भी है, भगवान ना करे ऐसा कुछ मिले, अगर ऐसा कुछ है लेकिन उसको पहले इलाज करना प्रॉब्लम ना क्रिएट खाने पीने में तो मतलब वो नहीं है ना, मैं इतना सोती हूँ ना मुझे लेडीज सारे काम भी अपने करती हूँ, मॉर्निंग कोई थोड़ा एक्सरसाइज वगैरह कर रही हूँ। कह रहे थे कि स्वेलिंग की वजह से भी गांठ दुखती है। और वो मुझे बताया ही था क्रिकेट में नहीं आया, तो सोचा था फिर इसकी बात करूँगी तो फिर कोई नहीं, तो वो खत्म भी ला दी। मम्मी जो सठोरा वगैरह भेजी थी ना, 5 किलो मैं अकेले खाई। छुड़ाने में ढाई किलो से खाने में बहुत हो जाती है ना, बस सेल्फिश चीज खाई है, मुझे अब मैं ये अब मुझे ये लगा कि ये चीज को ट्राई करो, खा लेना, खाना है तो खा, अब हर एक चीज खा, बस हर एक